So let me share my screen. Okay, so this was like the code from last time. If I run this, yeah, okay, so it basically, like, it has some of the original stuff from like what Replit automatically puts in. So it has like this button. We coded it so that, yeah, when you click it, it prints something in the console. We learned how to make like entry boxes, and towards the end, we did like a really simple program where you enter your name, and then if you click the enter button, it just says like hello, like with your name. So like, oops, not that. Let me restart that. If I type in like something random, it'll still just like enter. So yeah, I can kind of go through this with you. And I think I also sent this out in Slack. So if you want to like copy all the code and put it in something, actually, yeah, you could do that. Or I'm probably going to make a new REPL for today's workshop just so this screen, like this window, doesn't get super crowded. But I can spend some time going over all this first. So basically this very first line here imports tkinter as tk, so that every time we have to type out tkinter, we can just type tk instead. It just shortens it a little bit for us so that we don't have to type out the whole word. And then here we're creating a window. So that's usually the very first line of, or I guess the second line of a tkinter program. So you're just creating this window, and you don't really need like this title and geometry thing. The title is just like what's at the top bar, and then geometry defines the geometry, but you can like expand it anyway. So it's just like kind of what it starts as. So yeah, it's just like if you want to have like a starting size at a certain, like a specific size, then you can add that. And then we learned how to make a bunch of things called widgets. So there's 5 different types. The ones that we went over last time were label, button, and entry. So it basically just allows for user interaction. So labels are like hello world right here, and then also enter your name here. So they're just like text labels, kind of like instructions telling you what to do. And then buttons are buttons like this. And then these are entry boxes. So it's usually just one-line entries. And we'll also go over the text and frame ones today too. So the first widget, label, basically the way that you do it is you can create a variable to hold that label, and you do tk.label. So that creates a label, and then you can like specify all these things inside it. So sorry, okay. So I'm specifying that the text says hello world, background, so BG equals white, and then my foreground, which is my text color, I'm setting that to red. If I wanted to, like if I wanted a more specific color, I could also do like hex colors like I did here. And then I can also set the width and the height. So something important to note is that the width and the height are defined by text units. So the width is like, if I put 10 zeros next to each other, that's that width. And the height is like the height of 1 0. So like, for example, if I change this to width 10 and height 10 and rerun this, yeah, so like you'll see that even though that these are both equal, it's not a square, it's like taller because the height of a 0 is taller than its width. So it's like a small thing to keep in mind. Yeah, and then if I, for example, if I comment out this line here that says hello.pack, it's actually just not even going to put it on my window. So that .pack thing, so you do like your variable name or my label name .pack, and it just adds it to the top, like right it basically stacks them. So this one goes at the very top, and it just adds it to the screen. So like something that you could also do is if I wanted to say like, put this label under my button. So you'll see over here, I have my button.pack, which is this button. If I put hello.pack down here instead, like I'll just do that temporarily. It's just it's gonna show up in the order that it's packed, not the order that it's defined. So now my button comes first because that has .pack first, and then my label. So let me put this here. Oops. Okay, that didn't work. Okay, so that's a label. Then we have buttons, pretty similar. So there's text on it. I can define the foreground and background. If I don't define these, they're just going to be like the default, which is like gray and black. So that's why the background is still gray. And then I'm defining the width and the height, and I'm adding that here. You'll see there isn't any code yet, like not right here, that says what happens when I click the button. So that'll be like a little bit later. And then lastly, we have our entry box. So our entry box, we can add some text in it that appears there before. Oops. But for mine, I just set the width to 0, or sorry, to 20, and then left everything as the default. So I can like type in here. It won't do anything though. So yeah, and then, so far, do you have any like questions about those three, like just creating those 3 widgets and like the .pack thing?
No, I don't think so.
All right. All right, so we can, like I was saying earlier, we can do like, we can associate things with our button. So actually like anything, but specifically like we're just gonna do it with this button. So we can make something called an event handler, and that event handler is basically gonna check for events such as like if you press a keyboard key or if you click somewhere. So for example, if I click on this button, that's an event, and it just tells your program like what to do in that event. So first you want to define an event handler. So I call this one button clicked, and then in your parentheses you just put the event, or you just put event for now, and then you'll define that event later. And then in here you just want to put what is going to happen when you click the button. So I'm just saying the button was clicked, so that's why it's printing that out. And then you want to do, you want to bind your button to that event, that event handler. So it's basically saying like, when this button is clicked, it's going to like execute this event, or sorry, keep saying event. It's going to execute this function. So in bind, the very first argument is the event that's happening. So button 1 is like how tkinter defines like your left click. So if I right clicked on it, it wouldn't do anything. I think right click would be button 2. I'm not completely sure though. So most of the time you're going to be using left clicks though. So basically it's saying if you left click on this button here, then it's going to bind that button to this function. So it's going to execute this function called button clicked. So basically when I click this button, left click this button, it'll do whatever's in this function. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, cool. And then I just added like an empty space here because it was a little bit cluttered. So I just created a label and I set the text to be nothing, and then I just packed that. So that's what that is. Yeah, and then towards the end, we just kind of did like a small little activity trying to use everything. So basically the idea is that there's a label that tells you to type your name, then there's an entry box for you to type your name, and then there's an enter button to like basically take your name in, and then you print like hello and the name, and then at the very, very end, you just clear the entry box after printing, because it doesn't automatically do that if you don't code it to. So yeah, here I define like all the widgets first. So I have my label, my entry is just like an empty box, and then I have my button that just says enter, and I'm putting them just all beneath one another. So that's what, like, I just do all the packs like that. And then here's my event handler function. So it's called print name, and it's basically first it gets what's in the entry box, and then it prints out like hello plus whatever's in the entry box. So if I do like name underscore entry is the name of my entry box variable that I made up here. So if I do that dot get, it just gets, yeah, the text from the entry box. And then this very last line just deletes everything. So it deletes everything from 0 to the end of the entry box. So like if I wanted to, I could delete like a small section of it, but there's really no reason I wouldn't want to do that. So I'm just deleting the whole thing, like everything that's in there. And then now I have this enter button, which is this one, and I'm doing the dot bind. Basically when this enter button is left clicked, then it's gonna do this function. So it'll get whatever's in the entry box. So like that's why when I click it, when it's blank, there's nothing in there. So it just prints out hello with nothing after. And then it would clear it. So if I actually type something, then it prints it out like that, and then it clears the entry box. Does that make sense? Or do you have any questions about this so far?
No, it seems to make sense to me.
All right, and then the last thing is, like I said, this line here, the window equals tk.tk. That's like your very first line. You also want your last line to be tk.mainLoop. So it'll basically run all your code, and it allows for events to be like checked all the time. So yeah, it just checks for events. So if you don't have that, basically like your buttons and whatever won't really work. So that's just really important to remember. Yeah, all right. So I'm gonna make a new file so that it's not like cluttered, and I'll just make this one also a tkinter one. So this one is all right. So it starts me off with the default stuff. I'm just gonna delete some of it just so that there's less code. I'll also delete the geometry thing. Yeah, we'll get rid of this too. So basically we're just creating a window, and it'll look like that. Yeah, so it's just like an empty window. I can expand it. It doesn't have a name, so maybe I'll give it one. So and then we'll go over some of the other widgets that we have. Okay, so one of the other, like the other ones that's there is like a text box. And text boxes are kind of like, they're similar to entry boxes, like very similar entry boxes, except you can type multiple lines. So that's like if you want more information, or if you were trying to create something that like is more like people can type in paragraphs. So like if you wanted to have multiple fields of information, like if you're asking someone for their address, right, like you would probably use like separate entry boxes for like the street number, street name, whatever, like you see on a lot of websites. But entry boxes are more for like multiple lines of information, as in like paragraphs. So the way that we create like sorry, I think I said entry boxes, text box. Create a text box is, so we can give it like a variable name, and set that equal to tk dot text, and it's just going to create an empty box. So, and we also want to remember to pack that or it won't show up. So now if I run this, it'll be a lot bigger than, yeah, like a lot bigger. Yeah, so you can see kind of how I expand this more. Yeah, and if I type in here, I can press enter and so on, like that. Yeah. So let me know once you have that down, like these two lines here.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. And then similarly to how we get stuff from our entry boxes, we can also get stuff from our text boxes. It's just like, it's a little bit different. So let's say I want like the very first letter of what I type. So I could do text box dot get, and then if I type 1.0, this is basically like the 1 is like the first, that means the first line, and the 0 is first letter. So it's a little weird because it starts like the lines by 1, so the lines go like 1, 2, 3, 4, but the positions of each letter go like 0, 1, 2, 3. So I think, let me do a print around this. I think it should. Oh, it printed like out nothing actually because there was nothing there. Yeah, well, basically, like the idea is like you can get information from text boxes, although we probably won't be using them like this. So like if I wanted something on the second line, I would just change this to 2. And if I wanted like the whole line, like all of, let's say line 2, let me do text. So let's say we have a second line. If I wanted everything from line 2, so that would be from the first letter. And then if I do tk.end, that'll go to the end of the line. So that's how I would get line 2. We'd have to like create like event handlers and stuff for this, but I don't really want to like spend a lot of time on text boxes just because they're probably not what we're going to be using for like with tkinter. So just wanted to show you that really quickly. But whenever you're ready, I can talk about frames because that's more important for like organization and stuff.
Okay, yeah, I got the code down, but I missed what you said. Like, so the purpose would just be to like print part of the text box out, like after you.
Yeah, kind of like I guess the way you would use it is like if you were asking someone for some reason to type out like let's say you wanted them to type out their address in a text box instead of like an entry box, then you can say like, okay, the first line is the number and the street name, and then the second line is the like the city, state, whatever, something like that. Like you could use a program to get that, but I honestly, it's just one of the widgets that comes with tkinter. I honestly don't really see like, I mean, I can see where you might use it, but it's not super useful to us. Like I can't think of any like realistic applications for it, so I wouldn't worry too much about that one.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but if you wanted to, you would just, this is how you would get one single letter, and this is how you would get like a whole line. Yeah, okay. So the next thing is frames. So frames are basically, let me just comment this so that okay. So frames are basically you kind of split up your window into sections so that they're like, you can put different widgets in different sections, like in different frames. So I'm going to create 2 frames. So I'll create like frame A and frame B. So to create a frame, it's like almost exactly like all the other widgets. So if I do tk.frame, and it just creates 2 frames. Yeah. And I haven't packed them yet, but we'll do that later. So now I'm going to create I'll create like a label and an entry box just so that we can see the difference easily. So I'll call this label A, and I'm just going to do tk.label. Yeah, and then I think I can just leave that empty and it should work. Okay, and then I'll also create an entry box. So I'll call that entry B. And so what we're going to do is we're going to put label A in frame A and then entry B in frame B, and then we're going to try to move around the frames to see what happens. So for entry B, I'll call this, I'll just do tk.entry. And then, so for the label and to actually put them in the frame, what we do is type master, inside the parentheses, we type master equals and then the frame that we want to put them in. So for this one, I'll do frame A, and then the other one I'm doing frame. And we still need to pack these, even though like, so like if I do here, if I do frame A dot pack, and then frame B dot pack, we still need to pack label A and entry B into the frames. So we're going to do that like before. So A dot pack and entry B dot pack. Just remember to put the parentheses at the end. So we're packing them into the frames first, and then the frames are getting packed into the window. So when I run this, oh yeah. Let me add text to this. So let's we're gonna comment out our text box because it's just like really large. So I just put like 3 quotes on top and I'm just gonna add text to the label and entry just so that, or at least for the label. So I'll just do text equals just so that we can see it, because right now it looks blank. Yeah, so you'll see like it has label A and then it has my entry box right under it. So let me know once you have that. Or just something that looks like this.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. So the point of frames, like right now, this looks like almost exactly like what we did in our last program, because if we just didn't use the frames, it would be the same thing, right? But what we can do is let me create another label. I'll say label. So I'm going to put another thing in A, and I'm going to do tk.label master equals, and I'm going to put this in frame A too. And then so basically it's going to put this in, once I do this, so label pack. Okay, so it's going to put this, it's going to pack this into frame A. So even though this pack comes after entry B's pack, if we didn't have our frames, the way that this would look would be, it would have label A, then it would have our entry box, then it would have label A2. But since our frame A is packed before frame B, it's going to be like label A2, and then our entry box. So yeah, if I run this, it looks like that. So basically frames is like, it kind of groups together certain things so that you can, if you wanted to change the order that they were packed or something, it would just kind of allow you to do that, and without like having to rearrange all like the order of your code. You just have to rearrange the order that your frames are packed, if that makes sense. And let me know once you have something that looks like this.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. So, all right. So something else that we can do is, like using frames, we can kind of give them effects. They're not like super important, but they can, I don't know, they can just like make your code look nice. Or sorry, not your code, your window. So I'm going to copy something in because I don't want to retype it. But these are, so this right here that I just pasted, they're just like some of the different border effects. And then basically we'll just show what like each of them looks like. And then you can copy this part if you want. It's just more of like for reference for later if you want to make frames look like this, like make them flat, sunken, whatever. So I'll do for effect, name, and the effect. So this is like, let's, I think we went over dictionaries a while ago. So this is a dictionary, and basically like the key for each item is the name of the effect, and then the value is the actual effect that's like predefined in tkinter. So it's like the effect name and then the effect here. And then I can get all our items from our dictionary if I do border effects, which is the name of our dictionary, and then items. So I'm just creating a loop that goes through each of those items. Basically, I'm going to create a new frame for each one. So frame .tk frame, and actually I don't think I have to define. Yeah, okay, that should be fine. In the parentheses, the effects are called like reliefs. So I'm just gonna set the relief, like you know how I set the text or the master of it. I'm gonna set relief to equal the effect. So it's basically gonna be like tk.flat, sunken, raised, etc. And then I'm gonna set the I'll just say border width to 5. Okay. And then inside each frame, I'm going to have a label that just says like what the effect is. So I'll say label equals tk dot label. And then the master is going to be the frame, and then the text is just going to be like the effect name. And then I'm going to pack the label and then pack the frame. So just do label.pack. I can technically do it in any order. So I can do, like, I can pack the frame first if I wanted to. It doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to do it in this order. And then when I do frame.pack, I'm going to push them all to the left so that they're packed like all right next to each other. So I'm going to do frame.pack, and then inside pack, I'm going to do side equals tk dot left of shield. So hopefully this works. I don't know why it's Oh, okay, after effect, should say in border effects. There we go. Yeah. Okay, so you can't see them, I think. Maybe, okay, it just didn't work. Hold on, let me check this. Let me try to switch the order. I don't think that'll affect it. Oh, the width is supposed to be lowercase. Oh, there we go. Okay, so it shows kind of like all the different effects. So you have flat, sunken, raised, groove, bridge. So like if you wanted to separate things out with like more like effects like this that look kind of more obvious, then you can. I think the downside to this is like some of them do look like buttons when they're not. They're just like the frames. So like I can add a bunch of stuff inside these. So like if I also wanted to add an entry box, width equals 5, so it's smaller. And let's do entry dot pack. Define the master for this. So master equals frame. Like, oh yeah, okay, so it's doing that for each of them. So now each of these has an entry box. So it's like everything inside that frame will have that effect like around the whole thing. So it's just like, I don't know, something if you wanted to use it to like emphasize anything, then you could use like these effects. So far, any questions about this?
I don't think so. So if you like wanted to make like a area that was like, I don't know, raised, you would just do like the like defining things from before, but you would just add like that to it.
Yeah, so like instead of doing this whole thing, like let's say I have so tk.race, and let's say from earlier I have my frame frame A, right? So if I just do I did it like relief equals effect. So if I just do in my parentheses here, if I do relief equals tk.raised instead, like that, and now if I run my code, okay, that didn't work. Oh, I think I have to define the border width maybe. Oh yeah, okay, so you have to define the border width too. So yeah, now it puts everything in like a raised thing. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so you don't have to like, this is like just so that it's easy to loop through, but you could just take like one of these and just put like relief equals that, and then that'll fix it. Yeah. Okay, so let's 1 second. Okay, so I'm sorry, can you hear any background noise right now?
No, not really.
Okay, good. All right, so we can also, I'm gonna comment this part out just because it's like really long. It kind of messes up the, what's it called? Actually, it might be okay. Let's just leave it and try without it. Okay. So we're gonna create, we can also do like put things in specific places in our frame. So I'm gonna create a new frame. I think let's do frame C because I don't think we've done that yet. And I'll do tk.frame, and I'll do like width equals 100, height equals 100, and just do frame C dot path. And then Then I'm gonna create like 2 labels here. So I'll do, I think I did, yeah, I'll do label 1 and label 2. Ooh, that was interesting. Yeah, give this a second. Oops. Okay. Just want to make sure everything's still there. Oh, okay, yeah. So label 1 and 2. So I'll just do tk dot label. I'll just say so master for both of them is going to be frame C, and then I'll set the color for this one, or sorry, not color. It should be background, so BG to red, and then I'll do the same for the other one, but it'll be blue instead. E equals blue. And then I want that. Okay, so we've been, until now, we've been using pack to put everything onto our like window, but we can actually use dot place and define like exactly where we're putting it. So if I do label 1 dot place, and I'll put this at 0, 0 on our frame, and then I'll just do so x equals 0, y equals 0, and then I'll do label 2 dot place, and I'll put this at like 50, 50, so it's in the middle. So y equals 50. So now if I run this, it should show up. Okay, yeah, so you'll see like the frame, it's getting packed like right next to this other one. So I think, I'm gonna comment this out actually, just so it doesn't mess it up for a second. So it's just commenting out like the flat sunken, like those effect ones. Okay, so now it puts it right under the other one. So you'll see this frame is like the width and height, again, they're defined by like your width and height of a 0. So it's not really like pixels, which makes it a little bit harder to check. So like here, let's see if we can give it effect so we can actually see the like borders of our frame. So I'll just give it like, I'll just do tk.ridge. Okay, let me try to run that again. Oh, I have to do the border width again. Okay, there we go. Yeah, okay, so now we can see it. So you'll see like the one that we put at 0, 0, the red one. Since the label doesn't have anything in it, that's why it just looks like that. But if I put like text or spaces in it, then you would be able to see it. But I just wanted to like mark where that was. So 0, 0 is actually not like in the center. So if you drew a coordinate system, like x, like this is your origin. And so this is positive x, like this is 0, and then positive x goes in that direction, so like normal. But for y, 0 is like at this top corner, and then positive y is in the downwards direction. So it's just something to keep in mind when you're using place. And also since it uses like our text, so like our width and height here are in our text units. Oh wait, actually, oh no, it's not. Okay, so width and height here are in pixels, it looks like, so it's like a square. But when we do like x equals 50, right, it's not in the center. So let me see if, yeah, okay. So it's like not in the center of our screen, I think. I don't think this like is the center either, like right that point. it's kind of hard to tell. It might be. So like that top corner of our blue label looks like it might be like 50-50. So you just have to like keep in mind that it's going to put like the corner of it in there. So you have to take into account like the width and height of our label itself. So if we actually wanted it to be in the center, I guess we'd want it to be like, I don't know, like 5 up, I guess. It's kind of like a guess and check for this, honestly. So maybe that'll work. Okay, that like barely went up. So yeah, let's try 30. Okay, yeah, so it went up more. So you can like kind of test out where it is. There's probably like a more exact science to trying to figure out like the relation between the text units and the pixels, but we don't really have to get into that right now. So yeah, you can like put stuff in specific places instead of just packing them like right on top of one another. But yeah, do you have any questions about that?
So that means you can like place frames in certain spots, right?
Yeah, I think so. Let's try it out. So, yeah, let me try it for frame A maybe. So I have frame where I have dot pack. If I do dot place, and then I'll just do x equals 0, y equals 0. So it should put it, so the master for the frame is the window, like automatically. So if it should put it like in this corner, if it works. Yeah, okay. It tried, oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, so it's like in this corner now. And then now when it packs like frame B, it goes like right here at the very top because there's nothing there.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
All right. Okay, so the next thing that we can do, like I think that's used a lot more for organization, is using grids basically. And trying to, just because I don't want to put a grid in this too, I'm gonna comment everything out that we've done, and then later when I send out code, I'll like make it more organized. Just give me 1 second. I'm gonna make sure that this is like actually empty right now. Yeah, okay. So basically for a grid, we already have like our window defined, we give it a title. So we have our window already. To make a grid, let's do a 3x3 grid. So we're going to use something called like nested loops, and it's basically a loop inside a loop, and that's usually how you do grids in like programming languages. So it's like you loop through all the rows and then all the columns. But in our case, instead of looping through rows and columns, we're going to be creating like rows and columns in our grid. So I'm going to type out like for I in range 3, and then for j in range 3. So basically our I is going to be each row, and then our j is going to be each column. And we're going to do like, we're basically going to configure the column and row right here. So I'm going to do window dot column configure and do I, comma, so the weight is going to be 1, and we're going to give it a minimum size of 75. And I'm just going to copy this line and do the same thing for row. So I'll do row configure, and do a min size of 50. So that's like the height of each row, like 50, and then 75 is the, like, what's it called? The width of each column. And we have 3 of each in total. And basically what we're going to do is like in each, so we're, how do I explain this? So since our I is equal to our row, first it's going to be like I equals 0. So we're going to be on our first row. And then we're going to go through and create all the columns. So we're creating like the top 3 buttons or frames or whatever. And then we're going to go to the next row and then create those 3 columns, and then go to the last row and then create those 3 columns. So we're going row by row. We could also do it column by column, but this is just like the way that we're doing it. Yeah, okay. So in each like position, each grid position, we're basically going to create a frame and put it right there. So now we're going to go in our inner loop, so the J, and I'm going to create a frame. So frame equals tk.frame. And when we're putting like multiple parameters in and it's making the line like really long, like for example, this one, we have like multiple like options for our frame. So one way to organize it is just to, inside the parentheses, if you press enter, it'll put it in a like new line like this, and then you can type each thing separately. So we already know the master is going to be the window, so we don't have to do that. I'll do like relief equals tk dot raised, and the border width, so let me know once you have like this part all down.
Yeah, I think I got it.
All right. Okay, so now we're going to create our grid. So I'm going to do frame dot grid equal, oh, sorry, not equals, parentheses. So my row is going to be equal to I, and my column is going to be equal to J. So it's like going to put it in a grid with these positions. And then once you make everything, it'll like, it'll look like a grid. So you can add as many as you want, basically. So basically when you add a new row, then it'll like give it a new size and all that. And then let's also just add a label in there. So I'll add a label equals tk dot label, and then I'll just make the text equal row I. So it's gonna say like row 0, column 0, whatever like that. So column sorry, it's formatted weirdly. Here, I can enter this just so it's easier to read. So column J. And then I'll pack that into Alice, you're unmuted right now. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. Yeah, so it's just going to have like the text inside. It's just going to say what row and what column it's in, and then I'm packing it to that frame. So every single time it loops, it's going to create a new frame and new label with the right row and column number. And then it's going to loop 9 times in total, because like for every loop, like outer loop, it's going to loop 3 times, and there's 3 outer loops. So it's going to do like the first row 3 times, and then the second row 3 times, and then the third row 3 times. So 9 times in total. So I think if I run this, it should. Oh, let me put. Let me just. What I'm going to do is just put like make the text equal I, comma j. So it's just going to have 2 numbers next to each other. Or let me. Okay. So I'm just like casting it to make it a string temporarily so that it prints it out. Inside, wait, what? Line 37. What? I think this is all commented out already. I'm not really sure why it's. That's annoying. Line 65. Why is it doing that? Okay, let me just make sure everything's correct in this first. Here, let me see if this helps. Like if I do master equals window. Okay, I'll fix something. Line 66. Because I only have 1 line here. Dot pack. Which already. Geometry manager. Oh, okay. Yeah, I forgot to put. So here I forgot to put like the master for the label. So if I just do master equals frame, then it'll actually be inside the frame. That should. Okay, there we go. Yeah. Okay, yeah. The formatting for the labels are a bit off, but basically the grid creates like it gives it the row height and the column width, and it creates it like that. And then it puts a frame in for each one of that like height and width. And then if I like expand this out, they don't actually like expand themselves. So like they just stay the same size. So it looks like this and they're just more spaced apart. And I just want to make sure that your code also works because I know mine was having some issues. So let me know if yours is having any issues like that.
Yeah, let me see. Yeah, so it worked. I just like waited until we figured it out and then I copied it. So.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna stop this and let me stop sharing. Okay. Yeah, basically, so today I just wanted to focus on organization, which is like we mainly do that through frames and grids. And so the next workshop will be our last one. So I was kind of hoping to do like a project with all the Tinker stuff and make something like a calculator. So it'll be similar to like what we did just now, except it would probably have like a few more rows and columns, like if we do like a basic calculator. And then like making those instead of labels, we have buttons. And then we have like, if you click them, like something happened like on your text box, like your entry box and so on. So it'll be like kind of repetitive code, but it'll like kind of be like a little project you can walk out of this from. But yeah, do you have any questions or anything?
No questions, but unfortunately, I don't think I can make it to that last one just
Yeah,
because.
that's all right. I'll definitely, yeah, I'll send out like the recording and the code and also like some links afterwards. But yeah, that's fine. I'm
Okay.
gonna stop recording right now.